My name is Lita Escobar. I'm 31 years old. It was pouring rain in Charlotte. I raced home soaked, hands shaking, knees scraped raw, groceries slipping in my arms. I'd pushed to finish early, to cook for my husband's small party. But behind the door wasn't a party. It was him laughing, raising his glass. She's literally my ATM, works nonstop to pay my debts. They laughed like it was normal. The cold sank into my bones. My heart went cold too. I didn't cry, I stood invisible, listening. And something shifted, not feelings, my math. He kept laughing. I started counting payments, dates, gaps. Because I don't get over things, I reconcile them. And that night, I realized my marriage had a ledger, and some numbers didn't belong where they were. On a Tuesday morning in October 2023, my father-in-law Russell sat across from a loan officer and signed a document stating that I, his daughter-in-law, had jointly agreed to my husband's credit applications. I was at work. I was always at work. I had no idea that paper existed. I was running 6 jobs at the time, before sunrise, after midnight, 7 days a week. I thought I was saving us. I was not saving us. I was funding something else entirely. They didn't know I had already started pulling records. They didn't know what a woman who balances 3 sets of books for a living does when the numbers stop adding up. And what they found out next would cost them everything they thought they'd hidden. I grew up in Concord, North Carolina, 20 minutes outside Charlotte. My dad worked warehouse logistics. My mom did nails 6 days a week at a strip mall salon. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. We were the kind of family that knew exactly how much was in the account before every grocery run. I was their only child. And somewhere between watching my mom count tips at the kitchen table and helping my dad reconcile overtime slips, I developed something that would define my entire adult life. I became someone who counts. Not obsessively, not anxiously, just automatically, the way some people hum when they're nervous. I balance. My mom used to say, "Lita, you were born counting." She wasn't wrong. I got a full accounting scholarship to UNC Charlotte, graduated with 0 debt, moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on Montford Drive, $1,450 a month, and paid that rent by myself for 3 years straight. No roommate, no help, just my staff accountant's salary at Hartwell Freight Solutions and a budget I actually stuck to. The first time I used a notary was 2019. A man named Dale Hutchins, small office on East Boulevard in the Dilworth neighborhood. He notarized my lease. We shook hands. He said, "Nice penmanship." I smiled and thought nothing more of it. That comment would matter 4 years later. But I didn't know that yet. By 2020, my life had a shape I was proud of. Credit score, 741. Savings growing, career steady. I wasn't glamorous, I was solvent. And then I met Trevor Escobar at a networking happy hour on a Tuesday night in October. He was a sales manager at Meridian Medical Supply, medical device distribution, mid-size company, Charlotte office. He made $72,000 a year. He wore a good watch. He paid the tab without making a show of it. He also said exactly the right thing to a woman like me. "You handle the books, I'll handle the rest. That's how a real team works." I remember thinking, here is someone who understands division of labor. Here is someone who won't resent my spreadsheets. We dated for 8 months. He proposed at dinner. Nothing over the top, just a ring and a question and the kind of eye contact that makes you believe someone. We got married in June 2021. 40 guests, small venue outside Charlotte. Trevor paid for all of it. Caterer, flowers, photographer, everything. I remember thinking, he's responsible. He plans ahead. This is going to be okay. 1 month after the wedding, in July 2021, Trevor suggested we open a joint checking account. "Easier to manage bills together," he said. "That's what couples do." I agreed in about 30 seconds. I signed the authorization form without reading the full terms. I remember thinking it was a formality. That was the first door I opened for him. The ring, I found out later, had been purchased on an 18-month payment plan. 6 payments were still outstanding when everything fell apart. But that evening in July, sitting at the kitchen table in our apartment on Montford, I didn't know any of that. I knew a husband who smiled at me across a table and said, "We're a team now." I believed him. The first sign came in November 2022, and I almost missed it entirely. Trevor had been quieter than usual for about 2 weeks, less chatty at dinner, more time on his phone. I attributed it to work stress. He'd mentioned his company was being acquired, restructured, the usual corporate turbulence. Then one evening he sat down across from me and said, "I got laid off." Just like that, 2 weeks after it happened. I felt something cold pass through me. Not panic, not anger. Just a quiet recognition that the shape of things had changed. "When?" I asked. "2 weeks ago," he said. "I wanted to figure out a plan before telling you." I told myself, this is what partners do. You don't kick someone when they're down. So I didn't ask the harder questions. Why 2 weeks? Why the silence? Why the joint account had dropped from $4,200 to $1,100 in those same 2 weeks? I didn't ask. I adjusted. Trevor started talking about investment opportunities. Crypto. He'd been researching, he said. He had his laptop open one evening, and I saw the name of a trading platform, something I didn't recognize, and he closed it before I could read it fully. "Just research," he said. I nodded. I went back to my own spreadsheet. That was the last moment of ordinary life I can point to. By January 2023, ordinary was gone. It was a Wednesday night in January. I came home from a regular shift. Nothing unusual, nothing late. Trevor was at the kitchen table. He wasn't eating. He wasn't on his phone. He was just sitting there, staring at a stack of papers he'd placed in the middle of the table like an offering. He didn't say anything when I walked in. He just looked at me. I set down my bag. I sat across from him. I pulled the stack toward me. The first page was a Robinhood account statement, December 2022. The number at the bottom, the loss figure, was $51,000. I set it face down. I picked up the next page. 2 collection notices. One from a company called Lone Point Financial. One from Advance Credit Partners. Both charging 19.9% annual interest. Lone Point, $22,000 outstanding. Advance Credit Partners, $16,500. Both 45 days past due. I set those down too. I did the math in my head in about 4 seconds, the way I always do. 51,000 plus 22 plus 16,500. $89,500. I looked up at Trevor. He was still watching me. His eyes were red. His hands were flat on the table. "I didn't want to worry you," he said. "I thought I could fix it myself. I'm so sorry, Lita." I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then I asked, "Is there anything else?" He looked straight at me, steady, clear. "No," he said, "that's everything." It was not everything, but I believed him. And that belief would cost me the next 2 years of my life. I sat at that kitchen table until 2 a.m. running numbers, 4 different ways. If Trevor filed for personal bankruptcy, and with $89,500 in debt, it was a real possibility. The joint account default would drag my credit down with it. My score was 741. A joint account collapse could drop it to around 620. Our lease on Montford was up for renewal in March 2023. The landlord ran credit checks, minimum threshold 650. If my score fell below 650, we could lose the apartment. My parents didn't have money to lend. My closest friends didn't either. Every version of walk away that I ran ended with me worse off than staying. So I stayed. I made a plan. I opened a new file on my laptop at 2:07 in the morning and named it Recovery Plan V1. I didn't know that Trevor had already opened his own file. And in his, I was listed under a different column. 3 days after that Wednesday night, Russell Escobar called. Russell was Trevor's father. Retired contractor, mid-60s, lived on Carmel Road on the south side of Charlotte. We'd had a decent relationship. Holiday dinners, the occasional Sunday lunch. He'd always been warm to me in that particular way some men are warm to women they find useful. He called on January 14th. I remember the date because I wrote it down. His voice was steady and kind. "Leda, you're the most practical person in this family. Trevor needs someone grounded right now. He always has." I felt genuinely like he was trusting me with something important. "Trevor's always been a dreamer," Russell said. "You're the anchor. You always have been." I thanked him. I said I was committed to helping Trevor get through this. Near the end of the call, 22 minutes total, I noted the time, he mentioned almost in passing, "Trevor said you might want to consolidate those loans. Smart move financially. I know someone who can help make that happen." I thought, what a generous offer from a worried father. I wrote it down in my notes. Russell. January 14th, 22 minutes. Offered loan consolidation contact. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that 5 days before that phone call, on January 9th, 2023, Russell Escobar had walked into the North Carolina Secretary of State's online filing system and registered a limited liability company. He named it Escobar Home Solutions, LLC. He listed himself as the registered agent. He listed Trevor as a member. And he listed me, Leda Escobar, as a member. Without asking me, without my knowledge, without my signature. He called to check how I was holding up 5 days after he had already signed my name to a company I didn't know existed. The anchor of the family. That's what he called me. February 2023. I built the plan and I executed it. 6 income streams. Every hour accounted for. Every dollar tracked. Here's what a Tuesday looked like. Alarm at 5:10 a.m. Instacart by 5:30. 12 orders completed before 8 a.m. Charlotte market averaged $18 to $22 an hour in the early morning window. Fewer drivers, better batches. Shower at the Planet Fitness on the way to work. Desk at Hartwell Freight Solutions by 8:58 a.m. 8 to 5, staff accountant, reconciliations, payroll support, vendor invoices, steady work. Salary, $58,000 a year. 6 to 9 p.m. Freelance bookkeeper. 2 clients. A nail salon on Central Avenue in the Noda neighborhood, run by a woman named Mrs. Ortega, and a small sandwich shop 2 blocks away. $25 an hour, 3 evenings a week. Saturdays. Waitress at the Capitol Grill in the South Park area. Upscale steakhouse, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Tips on a good Saturday, $180 to $250. Sunday mornings, SAT math tutoring. 3 students, $60 each, 1 hour per session. Online, from the kitchen table. Sunday afternoons, Etsy. A shop I'd started 2 years earlier. Handmade beaded jewelry, averaging $34 per item. I packed orders at the kitchen table. I shipped on Mondays. The shop was called Leda Made, 4.9 stars. By August 2023, I had 312 sales. Total additional income across all 6 streams. Roughly $2,800 to $3,200 per month, depending on tips and Etsy volume. In 8 months, I had directed $19,400 directly toward the debt, and the balance had barely moved, because 19.9% annual interest on $38,500 in personal loans doesn't care how many Saturday shifts you work. It compounds quietly, methodically, while you're asleep, which, during those months, wasn't much. Trevor, in those same 8 months, had not found a job. He said he was looking. He said the market was tough. He talked about pivoting into a different industry, maybe real estate, maybe consulting. I didn't push. I told myself he's processing. He'll land somewhere. On Sundays, I packed Etsy orders at the kitchen table while Trevor slept until noon. He'd wake up, make coffee, walk past me with the box cutter and the tissue paper and the labeled envelopes, and ask what was for breakfast. Somewhere around April, I stopped answering that question. One Sunday in August, one of my SAT students, a 15-year-old kid named Owen, who was working toward a 1,400, looked at his screen during our session and said, "Miss Leda, do you ever sleep?" I laughed. "Enough," I said. I drove home that afternoon and walked through the front door to find Trevor on the couch watching something on the television, a 65-inch television. I stood in the doorway for a moment. I could not remember us buying that television. I ran back through recent bank statements in my head, the joint account, which I monitored obsessively. I couldn't place it. I didn't ask. I set down my bag. I went to the kitchen. I packed 4 Etsy orders. But I filed it, the way I file everything that doesn't balance. A week later, I pulled 3 months of joint account statements and laid them flat on the desk. I went line by line, the way I was trained to do, the way I've done it since I was 22 years old. I found 7 transactions I could not explain. Total, $3,200, over 3 months, June, July, August. Merchant names, APX Digital Services, Bloom & Co., Premier Stay LLC. I ran a search on Premier Stay LLC, Charlotte, North Carolina. A boutique hotel in Uptown came up. I closed the tab. My stomach understood before my brain did. But I wasn't ready to say it yet. Not out loud, not even to myself. I opened a new folder on iCloud. I named it Questions. I took screenshots of every transaction. I added them to the folder. Then I noticed something else. Trevor had been listed on the joint account's auto payment schedule for the loan minimums, loan point, and advance credit since February. That was normal. That was the plan. But Bloom and Company appeared 4 times: June, July, August, September. Trevor had told me Bloom and Company was a birthday gift for his mother, Lorraine. Lorraine Escobar's birthday was in February. These charges were in June, July, August, and September. 4 months, 4 transactions, one explanation that didn't fit. I took a screenshot. I added it to the folder. September 2023. I got sick for the first time in years. Strep throat, 101-degree fever. I went to work anyway on Monday. Called in sick Tuesday, the first sick day I'd taken in 14 months. Trevor sat next to me on the couch that evening. He rubbed my back. He said, "You work too hard. You should cut back. I'll figure something out." I almost believed him. I was tired enough to almost believe him. 3 weeks later, I checked his LinkedIn profile. The Open to Work banner was turned off. His profile hadn't been updated since March 2023. I took a screenshot. I added it to the folder. The folder was getting full. Then came the notification that changed everything. Late September, after a Saturday shift at the Capitol Grill. I was in the parking lot, still in my uniform, too tired to drive home immediately. I opened my bank app out of habit. I check balances the way other people check the weather. A notification at the top of the screen: "Your credit score has changed." I tapped it. 741 to 655. 86 points in 1 month. I sat very still in that parking lot for about 60 seconds. Then I took a screenshot. I opened the questions folder. I added it. Trevor was asleep when I got home. I didn't wake him. But I knew that folder wasn't going to be named questions much longer. October 13th, 2023, a Friday. My shift at the Capitol Grill was supposed to end at 10:30. The last table of the evening, a party of 6, canceled their reservation at 8. My manager let me go early. I was home by 9:15 p.m., an hour and 15 minutes ahead of schedule. I parked on the street rather than pulling into the driveway. I was exhausted in the specific way that goes beyond tired. The kind of exhaustion that makes noise feel like a physical weight. I could see light coming from the garage. I could hear voices, low and easy, the sound of men who are comfortable. Trevor had mentioned a poker night. Donovan, Brett, and Colton, his regular group. I didn't want to walk through the garage, through the noise, through the introductions and the, "Hey, Leda, long shift?" I just wanted to get to the back door. I got out of the car quietly. I walked along the side of the house toward the back entrance, passing within a few feet of the garage side door, which was propped open the way it always was when they played. And I heard my name. Not called, mentioned. I stopped. Trevor's voice. That easy, relaxed register he had with his friends. The version of him I used to think was just comfort, just familiarity. Man, she doesn't even ask questions anymore. She just works. I literally have my own ATM at home. Laughter. Donovan's laugh, I recognized it, the short exhale kind. Colton said something I couldn't catch. Trevor. "She thinks she's saving us. She's saving me. There's a difference, and she's too busy running around to notice." More laughter. I stood outside that door. I counted. 1, 2, 3. It is a reflex. When I don't know what else to do with my body, I count. I always have. 4, 5. I was 4 minutes and 30 seconds outside that door. I know because I counted. Then Brett's voice quieter. "What about the cards?" And Trevor? "She'll never pull her credit. She trusts me." A pause. Then more laughter, easier now. The laughter of men who believe the risk has already been managed. The cards. I did not know what cards. I did not know what balance, what account, what institution. I only knew the word, cards, and the certainty in his voice when he said she trusts me like it was a structural advantage he had built and was proud of. I stood there 4 more seconds. Then I walked to the back door. I let myself in quietly. I set my keys on the counter without making a sound. I went to the refrigerator and I poured a glass of cold water and I stood at the kitchen sink and drank it slowly. I did not cry. I did not go to the garage. I did not open the door and say a word. I sat down at the kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I opened the iCloud folder named Questions. I added a new note. Timestamp, 9:41 p.m., October 13th, 2023. Cards. What cards? Pull credit report. Annualcreditreport.com. Tonight. The credit report took 40 seconds to load. I had not pulled my full credit report since January. I had been too busy, always too busy, operating on the assumption that nothing had changed because I hadn't changed anything. The page loaded. I scrolled to the accounts section. 3 lines. 3 accounts I had never opened. Capital One Quicksilver. Credit limit $12,000. Chase Sapphire Preferred. Credit limit $18,000. City Premier. Credit limit $13,000. All 3, my social security number, my address, my name. My fingers went cold. I opened a new spreadsheet. I named it Evidence. I stayed at that kitchen table until 2:14 in the morning. The first thing I confirmed was the dates. Capital One Quicksilver. Opened February 14th, 2023. February 14th, Valentine's Day. That morning, Trevor had brought me flowers. Pink tulips in a paper sleeve from the grocery store. He'd set them on the counter and kissed me on the cheek and said, "Happy Valentine's Day, babe." That same day, someone had opened a credit card in my name with a $12,000 limit. The same hands that handed me flowers. I moved to the Chase Sapphire Preferred statement. I clicked through to transaction history. First entry, the Ballantine Hotel and Spa, $387. February 18th, 2023. I sat back. February 18th. That was the weekend Trevor said he had a team-building retreat. And overnight, he'd packed a bag, he'd kissed me goodbye at the door. I had worked a Saturday double at the Capitol Grill that weekend. I'd come home to an empty apartment and heated up leftovers and fallen asleep on the couch. He had been at the Ballantine Hotel and Spa, on a credit card with my name on it. I kept reading. The Capital One Quicksilver told a story in restaurant charges. Kindred Restaurant in Davidson, multiple visits. The Fig Tree in the Elizabeth neighborhood. Mayorga, Charlotte. Places I had driven past. Places I had looked at through the window of my Instacart car at 6 in the morning thinking, someday, maybe, when things settle down. I have a photo on my phone of the outside of Kindred Restaurant. I took it one morning during an Instacart run sometime in the spring. I remember parking for 30 seconds just to take it. I thought it was beautiful. The light through the window, the tables inside, the soft glow of a place that knew it was worth the money. I had never been inside. Trevor had been inside, many times, on a credit card with my name on it. The Chase Sapphire had hotels, flights, and retail. A round trip from Charlotte to Nashville, May 2023, a Marriott Uptown, a resort in Asheville, Nordstrom, $620, Sephora, $340. The City Premier had 4 charges to Bloom & Co. Boutique, June, July, August, September. The same merchant Trevor had dismissed in 4 words. Birthday gift for mom. Lorraine's birthday was in February. These charges ran from June through September. 4 months, not a birthday, something else, someone else. Then I thought about the envelope. About a week before that Friday night, somewhere around October 6th, I had come home to find an envelope from Capital One on the kitchen counter. Standard white. The kind with a small plastic window. I had glanced at it and thought, junk mail. Before I could pick it up, Trevor had walked in from the other room, scooped it off the counter and said, "I'll handle the junk mail." I had not thought about it again. Until right now. That envelope was a Capital One account welcome package. Trevor had intercepted it. He'd been intercepting them, all 3 of them, across 3 separate application windows, because our address was the same address on all 3 accounts. He had managed the mail the way he managed everything, by making sure I was too busy to look. I went to the North Carolina Secretary of State's website. I typed Escobar into the business entity search. The result came back in 3 seconds. Escobar Home Solutions, LLC. Registration date, January 9th, 2023. Registered agent Russell Escobar. Members, Trevor Escobar, Lita Escobar. I stared at my name on that page for a long time. January 9th, 2023. 5 days before Russell called me. 5 days before he told me I was the anchor of the family. He had already signed my name to a company. Then he called to check if I was stable enough to keep working. I opened the evidence spreadsheet. I typed the first row. Date, account, amount, merchant, cross-reference. I started filling it in. When I closed the laptop at 2:14 a.m., the spreadsheet had 41 rows. I did not cry. I went to bed. I set my alarm for 5:10 a.m. because I still had an Instacart shift in the morning. In the 2 weeks that followed, I did not confront Trevor. I did not change my behavior. I did not ask questions. I came home. I cooked. I sat at the table. I went to bed. I was the same Leda I had always been in that house, because the version of me that was the same was the version that kept him unsuspecting. And while that version ran on routine, the other version was building a file. October 22nd, Monday, 7:30 a.m. I called Hartwell's HR to say I'd be in by 10. Then I called a number I'd tracked down the night before. Gwen Halsey, HR director at Meridian Medical Supply, the company that had employed Trevor before his layoff. I had met her exactly once, at a Christmas party in 2021. She had a firm handshake and sensible shoes, and the kind of professional warmth that I recognized immediately as genuine. She picked up on the second ring. I chose my words carefully. Ms. Halsey, my name is Leda Escobar. We met briefly at your company's Christmas party a couple of years ago. I'm calling because I've discovered that someone submitted a letter of employment on my behalf using Meridian's letterhead, claiming that I was jointly employed there with my husband and that our combined household income was $130,000. I need to confirm. Have I ever been an employee of Meridian Medical Supply? A brief pause on her end. Then, Leda Escobar. No, you have never been an employee here. Another pause, shorter. And your husband's employment with us ended in November 2022. If someone sent a letter claiming he was still employed here in February 2023, with your name attached, that letter used our letterhead fraudulently. That signature is not mine. Her voice was flat and precise in the way that people's voices get when they're managing anger professionally. I'm going to need to report this to our legal team, but I can put everything I just told you in writing. Give me your email. I gave it to her. At 10:34 that morning, her email arrived. Subject line, fraudulent use of Meridian letterhead. She confirmed in writing. Leda Escobar had never been a Meridian employee. Trevor Escobar's employment had terminated November 18, 2022. The letter dated February 2, 2023, claiming joint household income of $130,000 and current employment for both individuals, was not issued by HR and bore a forged signature. I saved the email. I printed 2 copies. I added it to the evidence folder. Then I added a note. Gwen Halsey, confirmed. Letter forged. Trevor terminated November 18, 2022. Meridian legal team notified. She had told me not to contact the card issuers directly yet. I already knew I wasn't going to. I had one more thing to get first. October 24th, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Piedmont Credit Union, Providence Road Branch. I had banked there since 2018. Before Trevor, before the joint account at the bigger bank, before any of this. I had a personal savings account and a checking account that I had kept deliberately separate from everything we shared. I asked for Patrick Donnelly. He was a personal banker, had helped me set up the savings account 5 years earlier. He remembered me. I laid everything on the desk, the credit report, the 3 statements, the LLC registration, Gwen's email. Patrick was quiet for a long time. He read everything slowly, the way bankers do when they're making sure they understand what they're looking at before they say anything. Then he said, Leda, I've seen a lot of account issues come through here. What you're describing, 3 unauthorized accounts, a forged employment letter, an LLC registered in your name without your knowledge, this isn't a mistake. Someone planned this, step by step. He paused. I can't process fraud claims for Capital One Chase or Citi directly. That's not within my scope here. But I can tell you exactly how to approach each one, and I'm going to write you a referral note that explains the pattern. Because when you walk into those fraud departments, you need them to understand they're not looking at one incident. They're looking at a coordinated scheme. He pulled my full credit report on screen. He found it immediately, a hard inquiry from August 2023. A personal loan application I had never submitted. Someone had applied for an additional line of credit in my name. The application had been declined, but the inquiry was on record. 4 unauthorized entries. 3 accounts opened. 1 application denied. All within the same calendar year. Patrick wrote the referral note while I sat there. He printed it, signed it, handed it to me. Before you contact any of these banks, he said, get a notarized statement confirming that signature on the LLC isn't yours. That's your anchor document. Everything else builds from there. I knew exactly who to call. October 26th, Saturday morning. Dale Hutchins, the notary on East Boulevard in Dilworth. The man with the nice penmanship comment from 2019. I had seen Dale a second time in March 2022. My father had been dealing with a health issue, nothing catastrophic, but recurring enough that I had set up a medical power of attorney so I could handle paperwork on his behalf when needed. Dale had notarized that document. He had a signed specimen of my signature in his journal, dated March 14, 2022, witnessed clean. I brought the LLC registration printout. Dale sat across from me at his desk and laid both documents side by side. He studied them for about 2 minutes without speaking. Then he took out a magnifying loupe, the small kind jewelers use, and he looked closer. The pressure points are different, he said, almost to himself. The loop on your capital L, yours closes tight at the top, this one stays open. The terminal stroke on your lowercase a, yours curves back in, hooks slightly, this one drops straight down. He set the loop down. These were not written by the same hand. He looked up at me. I'll prepare a sworn comparison statement. I'll notarize it myself. Document number DH-2023-1026. You'll have it before you leave. It took him 20 minutes to prepare. I paid $45. I kept the receipt. On the way out, my phone buzzed. Trevor. Hey, you okay? You've been quiet lately. Want me to pick up dinner tonight? I looked at the message. I put my phone in my bag. I drove to South Boulevard, Clarkson Family, and Consumer Law, Suite 200. I had found Andrea Clarkson online at 7:30 that morning, read 40 reviews, and called to ask for the earliest available slot. She had a 4 o'clock. I laid everything on her desk. Credit report, 3 card statements, LLC registration, Gwen's email, Dale's notarized comparison, Patrick's referral note. The screenshot of my credit score dropping 86 points. Andrea read in silence for 12 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on the wall. When she finished, she set the last page down and looked at me with the particular expression that lawyers have when they are about to tell you something serious and are measuring how much of it you already know. Lita, what you have here is not a marital debt problem. She paused. This is identity fraud. Federal level. The LLC registration adds potential wire fraud. The employment letter involved a third party, Meridian, being used as an instrument of that fraud. This is not small. This is not something that gets resolved with a conversation. She leaned forward slightly. The notarized signature comparison is your anchor. Banks can argue intent. They cannot argue a licensed notary's sworn handwriting analysis. That document is the piece that makes everything else unambiguous. She asked me several questions. When did the accounts open? When did I first suspect? Who else had access to my SSN? What was the nature of the LLC's reported activity? Then she asked, does your husband know you have all of this? No, I said. Good, she said. Let's keep it that way. Do not contact Trevor, Russell, or any of the card issuers until I give you the instruction. Do not remove anything from the shared residence. Keep building the file. She pulled out a legal pad. Here is what happens next. I waited until November 8th, a Thursday evening. No poker night. No plans on Trevor's calendar. I checked. He was home. I cooked dinner the way I always did. Pasta, a simple salad, 2 glasses of water on the table. We ate. Trevor talked about something he'd seen on YouTube. I responded normally. I asked a follow-up question. I passed the bread. When the plates were clear, I got up and went to the bedroom. I retrieved the folder I had prepared. 1 copy, curated carefully with Andrea's guidance. Credit report with 3 accounts highlighted in yellow, 1 page of the Chase Sapphire statement, the page that showed the Ballantine Hotel charge, and 3 others. The LLC registration from the NC Secretary of State, Dale's notarized comparison statement. I came back to the table and set it down between us. I did not say anything. I sat down. I waited. Trevor looked at the folder. He looked at me. He opened it. The silence lasted maybe 20 seconds. Then, where did you get this? It's public record, I said, and my own credit report. He flipped to the next page. This isn't what it looks like. I said nothing. The LLC. That was just a business idea. I was going to tell you about it. I just hadn't figured out the right time. Whose signature is on that document? I asked. He looked at the LLC registration. He looked at the notarized comparison statement below it. You went to a notary? Whose signature is on the document, Trevor? He pushed back from the table slightly, not standing up, just creating distance. You went behind my back. Whose signature is on the document? The fourth time he didn't have an answer to give, he tried a different angle entirely. "I was protecting you," he said. His voice had changed, quieter now, almost reasonable. "If you knew about the cards, you would have said no, and we needed the credit. We needed a way to keep things moving while I figured out income. I was trying to keep us afloat." I had my phone on the table, notes app open. I typed as he spoke. T confirmed knowledge of accounts. Said, "We needed the credit." Direct quote. 8:49 p.m., November 8th, 2023. Trevor saw me typing. He didn't stop me. Maybe he didn't process what I was doing. Maybe by that point the situation had already moved beyond anything he knew how to manage. There was a long silence. Then he stood up. "I need to call my dad." "Okay," I said. He went to the bedroom. I heard the door close. I sat at the table. I did not move the folder. I did not close my phone. I sat exactly where I was, and I looked at the kitchen, the sink, the counter, the window over it, the dark outside. This was the same table where he had confessed the debt 9 months ago. The same chair where I had run the numbers until 2 a.m. and decided to stay. 11 minutes after he closed that door, my phone lit up. Russell Escobar, 9:47 p.m. I watched the call ring out. He called again at 9:51. I watched that one ring out too. I took a screenshot of both missed calls. I forwarded it to Andrea at 9:52 p.m. with a single line. Russell called twice after confrontation. Her reply came at 9:58. "Do not respond to either of them. I'll handle all communication from this point." I put my phone down. I called Andrea's office line anyway, not to break the instruction, but to leave a voicemail because I needed to say it out loud to someone who was on my side. "He confirmed it," I said to the recording, not with words, with silence. The next morning, Trevor was gone. No note, no text. His overnight bag was missing from the closet. His phone charger was gone from the nightstand. My coffee cup from the night before was still on the kitchen table. I rinsed it, made a fresh cup, put on my shoes. I went to work. I always went to work. But that morning, I drove to Hartwell with a folder in my passenger seat and a lawyer who was already moving, and for the first time in 9 months, the math was on my side. The first week of November 2023, Andrea filed 3 fraud claims, 3 separate packages, one for Capital One, one for Chase, one for Citi. Each package contained Dale's notarized sworn comparison statement, document number DH-2023-1026, Gwen Halsey's written confirmation from Meridian Medical Supply, the LLC registration from the NC Secretary of State, my annotated credit report, Patrick Donnelly's referral letter detailing the pattern, and a cover letter from Clarkson Family and Consumer Law, 4521 South Boulevard, Suite 200, Charlotte, North Carolina. Each cover letter said the same thing in different legal formatting. These accounts were opened without the named account holder's knowledge or authorization. The signature on the associated applications does not match the verified signature of Lita Escobar, as confirmed by a sworn, notarized comparison. The employment verification letter used in the application process was fraudulent, as confirmed in writing by the relevant employer's HR director. This constitutes identity fraud under federal statute. Fraud claim reference numbers CO-FD-2023-1104, Chase-ID-2023-1106, Citi-FR-2023-1109. Capital One moved first. Within 72 hours of receiving the claim package, the Quicksilver account was frozen and flagged. Disputed. Potential identity fraud, under investigation. Chase took slightly longer. Their fraud department opened an internal investigation and, as part of that process, pulled IP address logs from the original application submission, April 3, 2023. The application had been submitted from a device operating on the Wi-Fi network registered to our home address on Sedgwood. At 11:23 in the morning, I had been at my desk at Hartwell Freight Solutions at 11:23 a.m. on April 3, 2023. My badge swipe record confirmed it. Trevor had been home. The IP address matched a device that had also been used to log into his Robinhood account. One device, one person. Andrea sent me update emails every evening during this period. I saved every one. I renamed the folder Paper Trail. Final. Andrea also filed a complaint with the North Carolina Secretary of State regarding the fraudulent LLC registration. Escobar Home Solutions, LLC. She alleged that my name had been added as a member without authorization, and that the document bore a forged signature, supported by Dale's sworn comparison. Russell received a civil notice by certified mail. Address: 4892 Carmel Road, Charlotte. He signed for it on December 6, 2023, 2:14 in the afternoon. 3 days later, Trevor called. I picked up. Once. Lita, this is getting out of hand. My dad is... Can we please just sit down? Just talk? Talk to my attorney, I said. I ended the call. His lawyer, a man named Douglas Farr and Associates, Uptown Charlotte, contacted Andrea the following week. He proposed resolving the matter privately, outside of any formal legal proceeding. Andrea's response was 3 sentences. She declined the private resolution. She outlined the pending complaints with 3 financial institutions and 1 state regulatory body. She proposed a mediation date. Douglas Farr replied within 24 hours. He accepted the mediation date. Escobar Home Solutions, LLC, was formally dissolved in January 2024. The North Carolina Secretary of State's office processed the dissolution based on the fraudulent registration complaint. My name was removed from every associated document. The LLC ceased to exist. The IRS matter. $14,200 in income reported under my Social Security number from that LLC during its brief operational period was handled through an amended return, filed with documentation from the Secretary of State's dissolution order and Andrea's correspondence. The IRS processed the amendment in March 2024. The income was removed from my record. I owed nothing. Not a dollar. April 17, 2024. Mediation. Andrea present. Douglas Farr present. Trevor present. I sat across the table from my husband for the last time in a formal legal context. He looked like someone who had spent 5 months understanding the distance between what he had planned and what had actually happened. The settlement terms were straightforward. Trevor assumed full liability for all 3 credit card balances. Total, $38,750. My name was removed from each account by court order. Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion each received formal notification. Fraudulent account, removed by court order. The accounts were to be expunged from my credit history entirely, not simply marked as closed or disputed. My credit score, once the removals processed, came back at 756, higher than it had been before any of this started. My name was clean. At 3:17 p.m. on April 17, 2024, Andrea Clarkson called my cell phone. I was at my desk at Hartwell, reviewing a vendor reconciliation. The most ordinary Wednesday afternoon possible. It's done, she said. Your credit, your name, your tax record, everything. He cannot touch any of it. I asked my supervisor if I could step out for 5 minutes. I stood in the Hartwell parking lot in the April sun. Charlotte in mid-April is the kind of warm that doesn't know it's about to become summer. The air was light. The kind of afternoon you don't notice when you're inside. I stood there for 5 minutes. For the first time in almost 2 years, I did not have anything that needed to be fixed by tomorrow. The next day, April 18th, I filed for divorce. Trevor had left the shared residence on November 9th, 2023. Under North Carolina law, 12 months of separation establishes grounds for divorce. He had been gone for exactly 5 months when I filed, meaning the clock had been running since the morning I found his empty side of the closet. The 12-month mark came on November 9th, 2024. The decree was finalized in March 2025. Andrea handled it. She handles things well. It is December 2025. I am still in Charlotte. I don't know why I assumed I would leave. This city did not betray me. Specific people did. The city is the same. The light here in December is low and clear, and it comes through the windows of my apartment in Midwood at a good angle in the late afternoon. I signed the lease on this place in May 2025, 1 bedroom, $1,280 a month. The name on the lease is Lita. Not Escobar, not anymore. Just Lita. I kept my job at Hartwell. I still balance accounts every day. The work is not glamorous. It is exact, and I am good at it, and I go home at 6:30 most evenings and I do not have anywhere else to be. I closed 5 of the 6 income streams. One I kept. The Etsy shop. Lita Maid. Still running. Not because I need the money, though the $14,500 in savings I've built since the settlement is the first money I have ever kept that wasn't earmarked for someone else's debt. I keep the shop because I make something with my hands, and people choose to pay for it. That transaction has always been clean. That part was always mine. My credit score as of this month, 771. I want to say something about that number because I think it's the most honest thing I can offer. Not because 771 is impressive. It's a reasonable number. Plenty of people have it. The reason that number matters to me is that it exists only because of what I built, not what I was assigned, not what someone else accrued under my name. Every point on that score is mine. I earned it in the years before I met Trevor. I protected it through the years I spent with him, even when I didn't understand what I was protecting it from. And when the fraudulent accounts were stripped away, what remained was what had always been there. Just me, counting. There is something else I want to say. A few weeks ago, on a Friday evening in November, I made a reservation at Kindred Restaurant in Davidson. For one. Table for one, window seat, 7 o'clock. I drove the same road I used to drive in the dark at 5:30 in the morning, with a thermal bag of Instacart orders in the back seat. I parked in the same parking lot I'd parked in once to take a photo through the window. The hostess led me to a table by the window. She asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" "No," I said, "just me." She smiled. "Perfect." I thought, yes, exactly that. I ordered a glass of Sancerre and a plate of food I could not have told you anything about afterward, because I spent most of the meal just sitting there, looking at the room, listening to the sound of a place that had existed for years while I drove past it. I have a photo on my phone from a morning in 2023. Early light, Instacart uniform, the outside of this building taken through a car window. I have not deleted it, not because it hurts, because it marks the distance. There is one more thing. I still have the folder on my iCloud. Evidence. 41 rows the night I built it, substantially more by the time the settlement was signed. I have not deleted that either. People ask, when I've told pieces of this story, why I keep it. Why not close it out? Why not let it go? I keep it because it is the most precise work I have ever done. Not the hardest. Not the most painful. The most precise. Every document sourced. Every date verified. Every merchant cross-referenced. Every signature compared by a licensed professional for $45 in a small office on East Boulevard. That folder won a case that the people who built the scheme did not believe was winnable, because they believed I trusted too much to look. He called me an ATM. He was wrong. An ATM gives money to whoever has the right card. It does not question. It does not audit. It processes and resets and waits. I am an accountant. I know exactly where every dollar goes, including the ones he thought I'd never find.